everybody. Keith Engle here for the college TGI Sports Talks. College Sports Huddle. Football, basketball will be our focus. We'll start moving quite a bit more into basketball here as we go forward. But it's great to have you all with us here tonight. As we missed last week, we got some news to talk about. We'll dive a little more into the Nick Saban news and Kalen DeBoer being the new head coach there. We'll talk about the transfer situation. A lot of kids leaving Nebraska in the wake of Nick Saban's retirement. We'll talk about some of the other coaches that have tried to replace a legend at Alabama. I wanted to pull that up, and I haven't yet, but I will. We'll talk about some other news. Jim Harbaugh, just breaking news right now, has signed with San Diego. So Michigan will start another round. Shamon Moore will get that job, I believe, in Michigan. We'll find that out here in a little bit. I doubt we'll take very long to name that coach. By the end of the week, I would expect it to be Sherrone Moore. If he doesn't, another round of musical chairs may start, similar to what happened when Saban left Alabama. And we'll talk a little bit of other news, maybe what to look forward to in 2024, some things to be on the watch for, realignment, 12-team playoff, and the like. We'll get into college basketball. We'll look at the polls. Connecticut moves to the top of the polls and has stayed there. Purdue is second, and we'll talk more about that. We'll look at some mid-season review and where everybody is, who's a pretender, contender, and a Cinderella maybe. And we'll go around the conferences a little bit, see how much time we have. So welcome, everybody. Want to give a quick shout out to everybody watching TGI Sports Talk on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Watching us on Northeast Streaming Sports on Facebook and YouTube. And also you can catch this show Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on their Roku channel on Northeast Streaming Sports. And Let's Talk Sports. We're on their YouTube channel tonight. Guys, great content on both of those outlets. So please, besides the great content, hopefully you're watching here, you'll check them out as well. And also thumbs up DDH, and a quick shout out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media, who, especially the Sports Corner, he's doing some great stuff on RW Media, and especially the Sports Corner with Smoking Jim Frazier on WBVP, 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM. That's Tuesdays at 5 p.m. So off we go, guys. You guys can bring your comments. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I just mentioned, but we can go wherever you guys want to go because that's how this show is built. Dave Guyette, good evening. My day's been okay. Catching a little cold after traveling back from Vegas all last week. At work, by the way. A little fun was had, but mostly work. But we're trying to catch a little cold now. So those of you who think I get sick when I come home for cruises, I keep telling you it's the airplanes. And I'll stick to that story as long as I can. But thank you, Dave. We'll talk about your Syracuse Orangemen maybe a little bit later. Anthony, he left because he really did it. We're talking about Harbaugh. Listen, he was leaving. I don't think this really has anything to do with the allegations against Michigan. Because the money is there. He wanted to go back to the pros. He wanted to go last year. He wanted to go. Vikings didn't offer him the job that he wanted. So he went back. I know people think they used him as leverage. Rick, who's with us. Good evening, Rick. I know he thinks that his Vikings got used as leverage. I don't think so. He had all the leverage he needed this year. He won a national title. And this will be a footnote in history of the stuff that's going on. You know, again, you guys know how I feel about this stuff. CA, good evening. How are you? Harbaugh to the Chargers. It'll be interesting to see what happens out there. We'll talk about that a lot more Friday morning on Are You Serious, I'm sure. And on the weekend with the Stream of Consciousness show, we'll definitely talk about that a lot more than we will tonight. Tonight's topic will be, how does Michigan replace them? It will be more, I'm pretty sure. Did a tremendous job filling in for Harbaugh in 6 games this year, remember. And the Wolverines did not miss a beat without Harbaugh. Again, Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. He's a very polarizing figure. I know a lot of you don't like him. Not without reason. He's an odd guy and a little hard to warm up to sometimes, I think. I think both Harbaughs are like that. I think they're great coaches, and there's times where they're prickly, they're Well, Jim's a little bit more of an oddball than John, but he's going to do well in the NFL, and probably opens up the door for Atlanta to hire Belichick, which, again, these are not college stories, so we don't want to dive too much into them here. Shocked the Bill didn't take the Charger job. Well, I'm not going to get into this too much, as I said, because of the pro nature of this topic, but if I was Belichick, what I understand about Belichick is he does not want to coach in a big market anymore. He's had it. He wants to coach somewhere where it's a little quieter, less noise, like Atlanta. Problem in Atlanta is there's some friction between the front office and the owner about who to hire as a coach. So we'll get into more of that. So Harbaugh's gone. What's next for Michigan? We'll find out. That was one of the topics for tonight anyway. We can talk more about it. I also want to talk about Kalen DeBoer replacing the GOAT in Nick Saban. And a lot of guys, here's the thing. It's not easy to replace the greatest. At the time he retired, I would say that Bear Bryant was the greatest coach in the history of college football. Let me just check something out here. And at that time, it was very hard to replace him. He was replaced by Perkins, who was an Alabama alum, Ray Perkins, who had coached the Giants and brought them back to some kind of relevance. And then he went to Alabama and did very poorly. I'm not sure that I can find this as quickly as I want. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I'm not going to get it as quickly as I want. But nobody had success, extended success. They went through Perkins. They went through Du Bois. They went through Dennis Franchione. They went through one of the Shula kids. They went through Mike Price, who never made it to the sidelines because he got caught in a strip club right after his press conference. Gene Stallings had a modicum of success, won a national championship. Even Nick Saban struggled his first year there, going 7-6, I believe. Then he went 12-0. Now, Kalen DeBoer is stepping into the same type of situation, and maybe worse, because Alabama's losing guys to the transfer portal right and left since this announcement has happened. They just lost a 5-star quarterback recruit to Ohio State after they already brought in Will Howard. Who else have they lost? Isaiah Bond has gone to Texas. Sean Murphy, the linebacker, has gone to Florida State. Quarterback Des Ricks has gone to A&M. Antonio Kite, another defensive back, gone to Auburn. Amari the Black has gone to Texas. Trey Amos has gone to Ole Miss. Caleb Downs, great defensive player, gone to Ohio State as well. Caden Proctor, offensive lineman, has gone to Iowa. Jameer Grimsley has gone to Florida. And the 5-star quarterback I just mentioned, Julian Sayin, has gone to Ohio State. That's a lot of people to lose. And, the situations at Alabama this year and the situation at Washington that DeBoer leaves behind, DeBoer leaves the cover pretty bare because there's only like 2 starting players left in Washington that DeBoer leaves behind him. So Jed Finch is job replacing DeBoer, and DeBoer is going to have a very tough job replacing Nick Saban because it's hard to do that in the first place. And when you're losing such talented players, now I'm sure that Bama and probably Washington will do well in the spring round. Excuse me, I've got a bad stuffed up nose tonight, so we're probably going to do a lot of that. I think they're both going to do well in the spring round of the transfer portal. I really think, especially in Alabama. But I think Jed Finch will do okay as well in that transfer portal in the spring. But these are tough jobs. I think it's a great hire by Alabama. Don't get me wrong. I don't blame Caleb DeBoer because, again, this is what we live with now. He's not really leaving a lot of kids behind like a lot of other coaches has because he's brought a lot with him. And the other kids can just transfer out. You got even though the transfer portal's closed, if the coach leaves, you've got a 30-day window to either renege your commitment as a recruit, or if you're a veteran player, you can transfer within that 30 days, regardless of where the portal stands. So, people have talked about, I don't know why I'm getting this feedback in my, sorry about that, guys. A lot of people have commented on Nick Saban and whether this, the timing could have been better. When was he if he was going to retire? I don't think he knew during the regular season he was going to retire. If he knew, and I really don't believe he knew till after the Rose Bowl. Or after, I shouldn't say that. I should say, after the Rose Bowl. That's where they played Michigan, right? And if he knew before, then he wasn't going to announce it and take the focus off the game. So I really believe he made this decision, afterwards. I think he's tired. Look at, he's 72 years old. He said he did say initially there was some minor health issue. Then he kind of backed away from that a little bit. I think he's just tired. I think he's tired of the grind of college football, which has become a 365-day-a-year job, just like the NFL. I think he's tired of the transfer portal and the constant, recruiting guys in and seeing them walk away a year later. I think he's tired of what college football's become. And Nick Saban's going to go to television. Nick Saban's going to do very well there. So I don't think we need to feel sorry for him at all. That's for sure. What do you got here? Rick's got I've got a quarterback coach for him. Who is that, Rick? Are you trying to get rid of your coach, or? I'm not sure. I think that's about Harbaugh. I'm not sure yet who that's about. We'll find out what Rick comments back. What else is going on in the world of college football I want to chat about today? I probably just cleaned away what I wanted to use, which I did. It's par for the course. I did want to, there's a couple other stuff here. So we're talking about Kalen DeBoer, and again, how long is the leash going to be? If he has a 7-6 season this year for some reason, I'm not saying they will. Things are going to get pretty tight pretty quickly. Again, Saban started 7-6 his first year. There was a little bit of chatter, but he went 12-0 in his second year and won a national championship. So, that kind of quiets things down. But he better not have a couple of really bad years. And again, the SEC is about to get even more competitive if that's possible. And we'll talk a little bit about just reminding everybody where all these teams will be playing next year. I saw some chatter about Ohio State, whether Ohio State was kind of on a spending spree like Texas A&M was a couple of years ago. But you got to remember, Texas A&M was really loading up and had done that so on recruits, not so much the transfer portal where Ohio State is. They did a little bit more last year than they did 2 years ago, and it didn't translate into wins for A&M. They've got to fix their offensive line, and they had to fix quarterback, and I think they've done that. I think they've brought people in to address those specific issues. Also, they've improved their defense with Downs coming in to play defense. They kept a couple of Trevon Henderson will be back in that backfield, and they brought in a really fine player from Ole Miss in Quinshon Judkins. Plus Will Howard, they brought in from K-State to play quarterback, will be better than McCord was, for sure. McCord transferred to Syracuse, as we know. And they've also got Slayan coming from Alabama. So Ohio State, look at I don't know if it's national championship or bust, because it's definitely win the Big Ten or bust. It's beat Michigan or bust, because Harbaugh's gone, Blake Corum's gone, McCarthy's gone. You're making these moves. You have to win the Big Ten. You have to beat Michigan. Win a national championship gets a little tougher because we're going to a 12-team playoff. Oh, Jesus, Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is not going to. We'll get into this weekend. I'm sure it'll come up Friday, Rick. Watch the show Friday, because I'm sure that, our good friend Carlos will bring up Kaepernick as a potential quarterback for Harbaugh, even though they got Herbert. Oh, so anyway, Ohio State, they're on the clock. Brian Day's on the clock. It's time to beat Michigan. We talked about Saban leaving. We talked about DeBoer and whether he's going to have a short window. There was some talk this past week about the tweaking the playoff, and you may see some tweaks, right? Because I think the 6-6 is going to go away. 6 conference champions and 6 wild cards or at-large bids. That'll probably go to 5 and 7. There's some talk about making the G4 teams or G5 teams, however you want to look at it. I think it's G4 now, actually. Play off, have their own playoff to get their entrance into the playoff. I don't think you can do this. You're adding 2 more games to the schedule. I don't think the G4 teams are going to go for it. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know why I would. If I was the highest ranked conference champion, then that's where my entry would come from. So I don't see that happening at all. What else? And for instance, like if you're Boise State, I mean, I don't know what you want. Again, Mountain West, very underrated. I keep telling people this. Watch out for that conference this year. They'll add Washington State and Oregon State at least for this year. Although I'm not sure that they're aligned to play a conference schedule. I think they've scheduled 6 games, similar to what Notre Dame does with the ACC. So we'll see how that plays out. Just trying to look at a couple other stories that I had seen that had caught my eye. People complaining about this 12-team playoff having a significant flaw where teams that were ranked higher in the let's say the playoff poll, right, would end up playing. The seeding would be messed up because lower ranked teams would end up seeded higher in the tournament because they won a conference, where somebody else who finished a strong second, say a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ole Miss, might be ranked higher in the polls, but get seeded lower in the tournament and end up having to play a tougher second round game, or maybe even play on the road against somebody that was a lower ranked team. So look at these things. This is not a perfect system, right? Perfect system, we already know what it is. And you wouldn't have these seeding problems. Well, you probably would if you went to that 16-team playoff. But we're not going to talk about that because I don't want to get sued. I'm kidding. I don't mind getting sued. Let me look at, there was one other. I want to talk a little bit about stuff going on for next year in college football. What to be looking for. Michigan's going to be an interesting example. What happens to Michigan? Their new head coach, I would expect it to be more. Is there going to be sanctions that come from the NFL, or I'm sorry, the NCAA? I don't think there should be further sanctions. You guys all know how I feel about this nonsensical deal we're looking at here. But, look at the NCAA, you never know what they're going to do. If they want to blame Harbaugh and blame it all on him, he's gone, then they can probably do that and not have to listen to this anymore. We'll see. Maybe Michigan changes its tune and maybe they start to point a finger in the direction of Jim Harbaugh. Who knows? But we'll fight. I mean, here's a little bit of a primer for next year, though. You got conference realignment. So where's everybody playing? The Pac-12 is gone, as we know. The only thing left is Oregon State and Washington State, and they have a scheduling agreement, as I said, with the Mountain West, which, again, I'm telling you, underrated conference. Watch out for them sneaking in and getting that 6th seed, or 5th seed, I guess is what it'll end up being, automatic bid. The SEC now will include Texas and Oklahoma, don't forget, leaving the Big 12. What a monster league the SEC has become. I know I spent a lot of time defending the rest of college football, but the SEC has become a monster. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida. Watch out for the trouble with Billy Napier. I've been saying it for the coaching reasons. Now they're in trouble with an NCAA investigation. Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri, on the come. Ole Miss, on the come. Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M. Watch out with a culture change there. And Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to get lost here, right? You guys got to excuse me with the nose blowing tonight. Apologize. You know, if you're Vanderbilt or even South Carolina, how are you going to compete here? How? I don't see any way you can compete here. That'll be tough. Big 12 now will be Arizona State, Utah joining, and Colorado coming from the Pac-12, joining Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia. This conference is definitely weaker for losing to Oklahoma and Texas, but I find this is a very interesting conference. With Jed Fish leaving Arizona, I see a little bit less intrigue with Arizona coming in there. I thought Arizona could have won this conference in their first year there. But I think this is an interesting conference to watch out for depth-wise. I don't necessarily see there's definitely going to be a playoff team come from here, but I'm not sure you're going to see two. Big Ten. You know, I wonder if the Big Ten realized a couple years ago when they went into this agreement that Oregon was going to be the best team coming in there. Dan Laney's team will be very competitive and probably be a threat in the West. I don't think they're playing divisions next year. They'll be a threat to get to the Big Ten championship game in their first year. But USC's a mess. UCLA, after looking like they were a team on the rise, a program on the rise under Chip Kelly, is a mess. Washington is probably going to take a big step back, similar to what TCU did last year. You know, and maybe could go 6-6, 5-7. They've got two starters left on the entire team, and their head coach is gone. So if the Big Ten had known what the landscape was going to look like, I wonder if they would have made this move. I'm not sure. Anyway, you got Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska. Is Nebraska ever going to make a move? Northwestern, Ohio State, great job by Braun there at Northwestern last year, by the way. Ohio State, we know Ryan Day on the clock kind of there. Penn State, I got to believe that Franklin's going to be a little bit on the clock as well. Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington. Again, if the Big Ten knew what they were getting into, would they still have done it? Hello, Sonia. Good to have you with us. Sharing the show. Great. Thank you very much. The team issues are messy, isn't it? Realignment's been messy, and we're not done. We're not done. You wait. In the next 5 years, realignment's going to get even messier. Because there's going to be a 40-team conference, if you will, broken up into regions. Something along those lines. And you're going to have another subdivision with the rest of these 133 teams, or 93 that are left, let's say. Whatever the breakout is. That's what's going to happen. That happened next year, the year after. 5 years from now, we're probably going to see a totally different landscape than we see now, and the landscape now is all blown up. The ACC will welcome two teams from the West Coast, Stanford and, Stanford, Cal. They're also going to welcome in SMU. So it's going to be Boston College, Cal, Clemson, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami, NC State, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, SMU, Stanford, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. It gets hard. I get winded just going through these names of the teams of the conferences. They're so freaking big. So the ACC and the Big 12 are kind of in the same spot. They're going to get a playoff bid, but are they going to get two? You might have 5 league champions. And let's just for the sake of argument, say Notre Dame. And the other 6 are going to be from the Big Ten and the SEC. Well, thank you again, Linda or Mac. Just like you have, you know what? I got to give Mac credit here. I don't know if it's you, Linda, giving your husband credit or Mac there giving credit to himself. Either way, Mac said this, and he came on this show, and talked about the super conference, and I told him he was crazy. Now I may be wrong, because what we've seen so far isn't what Mac predicted yet, but we're heading that way. And just like the NFL, again, is probably what we're looking at. It could be it could be more than 5 years. It could be 10 years. But I think it'll be sooner rather than later. When TV contracts come up again, we're going to see another seismic shift in college football, college sports. This affects not just football teams, don't forget. And by the way, this is something they've got to consider. When they've got to, all of the sports cannot play this type of coast-to-coast schedule. Girls softball, lacrosse, all things that are very important to college athletes, and there are a lot of scholarships given to all of these sports, but they're not revenue-drawing sports. How are they going to afford, or there's going to be more burden on the football and basketball programs, football specifically, which means bigger TV contracts are needed to support all of these other sports programs. You can't. I mean, it's not Rutgers. Who's going to care about Rutgers going to play UCLA in lacrosse? I'm using a stupid example. Nobody's traveling across the country to see that. Nobody's tuning in to TV to see that. So many similarities in the NFL and college sports, Sonia says. She blames it. The NIL is a big part of it. At least the NFL has rules. They have salary caps, so we can control salaries a little bit. I mean, obviously we're out of control for quarterbacks and wide receivers, and again, I'm the guy who says you're worth it if somebody wants to pay you that, then you're worth it. But it hurts the rest of your team. And the NFL's better when it comes to free agency, which the transfer portal's become. You're seeing guys. Casey Thompson's going to his fourth school. JT Daniels, who just graduated this year from Rice, was on his fifth 5 years. You got a kid playing tight end for Miami who's in his ninth year. So the NIL keeps them there, wants them to. It entices them to stay in college rather than go and take a rookie contract. If you're going to be a third or fourth round draft pick, you're better off staying in college for as long as you can. And there's no rules governing a free agency. There are in the NFL, not in college. I don't know what the answer is. It's really gotten depressing in a way. 2,100 plus in the transfer portal right now, as Sonia says. There was like 100 plus quarterbacks. We'll look at some of those in a little bit, maybe. Alabama's. We just went through. I don't know if you saw, Sonia, at the very top. I talked about some of the 5-star athletes, both recruits and that have left Alabama since the Saban news broke, and a lot of people had talked about whether he could have done this at a better time to help the university, help the program stay stronger. There was no better time for him to announce this. And a lot of kids go to Alabama because they send so many kids to the pros. So with that guy gone, it's going to hurt them for a while unless DeBoer hits the ground running. And I do think they'll have a good spring portal. And they have brought some kids in from Washington and a few other schools that have helped a little bit, but it's going to be very tough. Yes, well, the decommitment of the quarterback that I just talked about, five-star quarterback, is really going to hurt Alabama. And we talked about Alabama, but Washington is left in an even worse position with DeBoer leaving. 2 starters left off of that national championship final participant. 2 starters. That's going to be rough to try to fill that. And Jed Fish is kudos to him for taking this job. I might have stayed at Arizona. But, it's a Big Ten job, so he's going to stay there. John DeLon, how are you, buddy? Our resident SEC elitist, John DeLon. Good to have you with us. Sorry, the SEC did not win the national championship. I'm glad to see that you survived that awful Once again, I apologize. You're going to see a lot of that tonight because we're catching cold as usual when I travel on an airplane. People sneezing on my head right and left. Jesus, God. So anyway, John, your thoughts on Nick Saban? I think John was there. I think John was here because we had that news break just before we went on the air. Couple things, college basketball coach or college football coach wise. We'll get into some basketball a little bit. Saban leaving a huge void, very hard shoes to fill, just like the shoes it took, 6 or 7 coaches between Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, the previous GOAT to the current GOAT. DeBoer's got big shoes to fill. It's hard to be the guy that replaces the guy. But he's a good selection. John, do you think Alabama falls backwards because of this big mass defection of recruits, decommitments, as Sonia said, and also veteran players? Now they have brought some guys in from Washington and other places. And, John, you can also give me your last thoughts on Jim Harbaugh, because we'll never have to talk about Jim Harbaugh on this show again, because he's never coming back to college football. We'll talk about him on other shows on TGI Sports Talk, but not this one. Sonia says, plus you got Colorado trying again with the supposed prime effect. Didn't work very well. Hiring Warren Sapp. Let me parse my words carefully so I don't get canceled like Jim Chefcoat. There's Prime and there's Deion. Deion's a pretty good football coach, by the way. Coach Sanders is a pretty good football coach. Coach Prime is a publicity man. That's what this move is about, getting Warren Sapp. That's what, turning over 75 players last year was. And he's going to have an easier time of it, I think, in the Big 12, the new Big 12, than he would have had in the old Pac-12. I find the Big 12 not a very strong conference, championship contender-wise, to be a very interesting conference with some interesting teams. But feel better, folks aren't they awful, man? Every flight I get on, Sonia, somebody sneezes, I swear to God, on my head without covering their mouth at all. I don't even have to see them. Oh, I guess I don't have to pay for that part. John's well, that's good. They're moving vans in Jim Harbaugh's driveway, we know, on his way to San Diego. By the way, the Chargers would be much better off than went back to San Diego, but that's a different show. Jim Harbaugh, you can say he got out in front of the posse. I don't think he did. He had a contract worth $11 million $11 million a year on his desk waiting to be signed. And I think if the right job hadn't opened, I do think he'd have come back and dealt with whatever happened. I do think Moore will be the coach there next year as well. Thank you for laughing, Sonia. I'm trying to laugh through you're so over the theatrics. I know. Here's the thing. Deion should be Coach Sanders because he's not a bad football coach. If you've watched any of the aptly named Coach Prime miniseries that's on Amazon, there's 2 seasons of it. The first one was at Jackson State. Second one was at Colorado. And I got to tell you, I found him to be much more of a football coach at Jackson State than I did at Colorado. But he's not a bad football coach. He's a great motivator. He holds kids accountable. But then there's this whole clown show of Coach Prime that gets tiresome. Deion Sanders is not going from Colorado to Alabama. I had to laugh when Deion's on his way there. Deion's got to do a better job at Colorado before Deion gets another job anywhere else. Deion says, I bet half of AL people coming to Georgia. There was an interesting rumor about Kirby Smart going to Alabama before Kalen DeBoer. Alabama, Kalen DeBoer's a good hire. And Alabama had their backs up to it because other coaches had already been snapped up. They had to hire a coach fast, and they couldn't let that drag on weeks. It had to be done that week, basically, and I think they got it done by the weekend. It happened on a Wednesday. By the weekend, we had a coach. And maybe by Friday, we had a coach. But Kirby wasn't going to go to Alabama. I mean, I hope Alabama called him. He was there for a long time, and he probably deserved at least a phone call so he could say no. John, the team commitments, Pat Bama were expected, of course. Probably well over half of the players chase Bama for NFL development, which is kind of what I said, probably as you were coming on, John. I mean, that's what hurts more than anything with Saban leaving, right? A lot of these kids just went there because of the number of NFL draft picks that come out of Alabama. And DeBoer doesn't have that type of track record from Fresno State and Washington as of yet. There'll be a lot of kids from that Washington team to get picked in this draft, though. But it is to be expected. But I do think DeBoer may do okay in the spring portal. We'll see how that goes. Sonia said, yes, I get sick like that years ago on my way to MX, Mexico. You're so a germaphobe. I'm not a germaphobe. But I won't wear a mask anymore either. I'm done wearing masks. It's funny. I was not sick on the flight even a little bit. And I swallowed something funny. And I coughed a little bit, a little cough like that. The woman next to me puts her mask on. Totally covered my mouth. Too funny. It's just hard to travel, man. The last 2 years, I've come back from cruises sicker than a dog a couple days later, and everybody said it was a cruise ship. So I said, no, it's not the cruise ships. I guarantee you, they're clean as a freaking whistle. It's the airplanes. And this proves it because here I am, did not get on a cruise ship, and I'm sick. Hello, JB. Sorry about that. Check out JB's Back It Up Binge podcast, by the way, guys. Good stuff. I listened to a couple of stuff that I found of JB's on Twitter. John Lawn, I'll say it again. Jim's a coward. I know you don't like Jim. He knows the same cards. He knows some of the cards the NCAA is holding, and he ain't man enough to stick around and clean up his mess. As much as I'd like to dive into this Jim Harbaugh debate with you one more time, John, I just don't think I'm going to do it. The chips are going to fall where they fall at Michigan, and I don't think there'll be any serious sanctions against Michigan. Maybe there would have been worse if Harbaugh stuck around. I don't know. I'm still going to stand by what I said before because I don't think I'm wrong, that this is pretty much standard operating procedure for NCAA schools to try to get an advantage. Maybe not this particular way, but any way they can. And there were some schools in the Big Ten doing exactly what Michigan was doing. And I was going to say, I've actually said for weeks now, he's a pretty reliable source, and maybe they aren't now as things turn out this week. But in any event, I stand by what I said. And by the way, this national championship can't be tainted by any of these allegations because they played the toughest part of their schedule came after all of this came out. There's no way they were using any of that information to win a national championship. And again, I just think it's much ado about nothing. And I don't condone cheating. I really don't. But when everybody else is doing it, what are you going to do? And I know, John, that'll set John off right now. Half of Bama players going to come from a super dog squad. I don't know. Maybe in the spring, you're saying, Sonia, some of those Georgia players will transfer. I don't think I'm not saying nobody transfers. And John might have a better take on this than I do. I think it's got to be very hard to transfer from Georgia, Alabama, or Alabama to Georgia because of the dislike between those programs. But I could be wrong. Actually, that's right, John. We did talk about this. You had told me that sparked my memory because the last show he did 2 weeks ago when this news broke about Saban, you had mentioned to me that Saban, it was a done deal that Saban had said before the season or during the season, I don't remember which, I'm paraphrasing, he was leaving and Dan Lanning was already in place to be the head coach. That's as wrong as you've ever been. I don't know if they ever went to Norvell. I thought Norvell was going to be the guy from Florida State, just to make sure everybody knows, and Dan Lanning from Oregon. I don't know that. Well, Lanning took himself out of the way I read it, and I could be wrong. He took himself out of the running before he's even asked about the job, and I don't know about Norvell. I mean, this had to happen fast, and I do think it's a good hire for Alabama. I want to reiterate that. I like Kalen DeBoer a lot. Who goes to Michigan? I think Sherrone Moore, the offensive coordinator, will get the job. He had coached 6 games this year. I think he did a remarkable job, and I think he will get the job. We'll see. It's Michigan. They may want to look for a bigger name, and if they do, it may set off another round of musical chairs, which has been set off a couple of times now at the end of the regular season. Of course, we had our big round of musical chairs, and Saban set off another round of musical chairs with DeBoer, and then Jed Finch going to Washington from Arizona, and Arizona promoting their own coach, their own coordinator. But I think it'll be more. Crying and cussing assistant coach. Wait a minute. I got to blow my nose again. Not pretty. It's no prettier here than it is there. I'll make sure you know. What do you got, John? By the way, you don't think Maury's a slam dunk? What if Moore gets a show cause stopped on him? Again, John, you're putting a lot more into this investigation than I am. So I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think it's possible Michigan wants a bigger name than Moore. But I also think it would be a huge mistake for them to bypass a guy who's been a loyal assistant there and, held the company line through all this roller coaster of a season and helped them win the national championship, was a big part of it. Kirby did work under Saban. That's why I said Alabama had to at least make a call to Kirby so he could say no. But I don't think there's a lot of love lost between the two universities, is my point. And I don't know. And again, John can probably speak to, I just don't think there's a lot of movement between these two schools specifically. Imagine a mass portal exodus from Michigan if Moore isn't named. Agreed. That's another thing Michigan's going to think about, John. And I would expect, again, they have to make this move pretty quickly, I think. I would think by tomorrow, Friday at the latest, we have an announcement of a head coach in Michigan. And I would think a lot of these, and Michigan's done a good job of keeping players like Blake Corum last year. And this year they've kept, I think, a lot of guys who might normally have gone to the NFL. Same thing with Ohio State. They brought in a few. I'm thinking of Ohio State bringing in some transfers. But yes, I think there would be a mass exodus because those guys, I think, loved Moore. Maybe they liked him more than they liked Harbaugh. They played their asses off for him while Harbaugh was suspended, that's for sure. No crying in football. John sounds like an attorney. John, I don't know what John does, to be honest with you, Sonia. John has been, and John knows this about this. There could come a point in the show, Sonia, where John and I get a little heated. But John is a well-respected member of my audience and follower of the show. specifically. And John's point of view is I do hold it in some good regard. I was going to say high regard. I don't want to go that high, John. And we go at it pretty good. We just see a couple things differently, right? I say there's really good football being played. Without any disrespect to the SEC, it is obviously the best conference in the country. But there's good football being played all around the country. And Alan Perales, who's done a lot of sticking up for the Big 12 over the last few years. I got a comment coming up from him here in a second. I'd love to see, whether he's going to stick up for the Big 12 anymore after this year. Hello, Alan. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I know Alan's got a new job, and Alan's got some shows, too, on LTS. Let's Talk Sports. Make sure you're checking out Alan's stuff. Alan's been a loyal follower here and one of the guys that my good friend, the late Dan Harris, who we miss a lot, helped get started with his own podcast, and Alan's doing some fun stuff. He's had a tough time of it with Dallas, going out the way they do, but he's always got a backup plan. Alan. So anyway, welcome, Alan. How are you doing? A fun fact, new Baseball Hall of Famer Todd Helton was the same quarterback room with Peyton. Yes, he was. Todd Helton, who does not belong in the Baseball Hall of Fame, by the way, and we'll talk about that this weekend. We'll talk about it probably Friday and Sunday as well. We won't talk about it here a lot because this is a college show. But Todd Helton was a quarterback at Tennessee on the same team as Peyton Manning. Good call there, Alan. Very fun fact. And sorry about your Cowboys. And by the way, we'll talk a little bit about your Oklahoma Sooners here. Maybe if we have some time to talk some basketball here in a little bit, because the Sooners are playing some really good basketball there under their second year coach. Picked to finish last in the conference, I believe, by a lot of people. Playing really good basketball. We'll see whether they can sustain it here through conference play and obviously tournament time. Oh, come on. Don't make me go back and look. All right. You were making a prediction based on rumors. Fair enough. The way it came across in the comments was that you were making a statement that it was already done, but that's fair enough. Fair enough. I didn't hear those rumors myself. In fact, the only rumors I really heard were about Norvell. Show cause. What? I felt like it was at work. Yeah, Sonia is a Superior Court judge, John. No, I'm not sure what Sonia does for the court. What do you do for the court, Sonia? Fill us in. So I really must think. I don't think they're coming for Michigan with a hammer. I really don't. If you think the cheaterines, could really land a big name head coach to replace Harbaugh. I didn't say they could land one. I said they might go after one. And I don't think, I do not think there's going to be serious sanctions here. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. My gut's telling me, though, no serious sanctions are on the way. Will there be some sanctions? Yes. Might they be ineligible for a year or something for postseason? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think they should be, but it's possible. Sonia says, congrats to Alan. Alan, I'll tell you, Alan was one of our biggest contributors. Now he's such a big shot. I hardly see him on my show, but, he's a busy guy. Of course, he's got a new job and stuff, so I'm only kidding. Sonia giving a shout out to John. Still, gotta throw that one back at me. I was wrong about your Texas Rangers, Alan. Congratulations. And I gotta tell you, I stuck up for your Cowboys a lot this year. And the Sooners. Don't forget, I picked the Sooners to get to the playoff at the beginning of the season. They looked good for a while. And by the way, there's another problem with it. Again, Sonia brought this up before. The NIL money, Dylan Gabriel takes a bunch of NIL money to come from UCF, I want to say, to Oklahoma. Then he takes even more money to go to Oregon. This is not the way college football was designed to be played. It's the Wild West. Nobody's in charge and nobody's setting any rules. By the way, that you hear me come like Spock while debating. See, we have no way to know that, John. I have a picture of you ranting and raving at your screen while I'm ranting and raving into mine. By the way, I got to tell a quick story. Sunday morning, I'm doing my show, and I went really long. We usually do a 2-hour show Sunday morning, and I went 3 hours because that wasn't on the week before. And you guys, a lot of the same guys that are here, and a bunch of others, just had a comment. I mean, we were just really rolling during the show, and I went an extra hour. My wife, I got upstairs at 11:30 instead of 10:30. My wife's like, "Where you been? Where you been?" I thought something really serious is wrong, and she showed me a picture of my granddaughter, and she said, "Scarlett's been just a terror all morning. They can't control her. She's upset. She's this, she's that." And then she saw me on her father's phone, and it calmed her down, and he put her on the big screen, and they sent me a video, and I posted it on Facebook, and it's really cute. So I'm now going into new business, John. Apparently, my ranting and raving calms down young children, at least the 16-month-olds that are my granddaughter. Oh, there might be a large market out there for me to be able to sell my ranting and raving to calm down young children. I may be onto something. I'm not sure, but I need a lot of money to back me. Third, I think. I don't know what that was. You talking about Dylan Gabriel? I don't remember where we were, Alan. Sonia's a paralegal in the public defender's office, but starting law school. Well, congratulations to you, Sonia. Good luck with that. If John's actually a lawyer, maybe he can help with that a little bit. I specifically remember using the words "I think" when talking about landing to Bama. I'm never going to find out because I'm not going to go look. I take your word for it, John. But I'm not going to let the facts get in the way of a good story. John is my favorite nemesis on this show. Used to be Alan. The punishment has been served for Michigan, folks. We need to let it go. I don't disagree. I don't find any of the allegations serious enough to warrant, again. John has talked about lack of institutional control in the past. And if that's the case, then the guy who lacked control is gone. And who are you going to punish? You're going to punish the kids? I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I don't think it was that big a deal. There's worse stuff happening all over the country that we don't know about. And I've said this before. The only way you get in trouble is that when somebody wants you to get in trouble. Then they find whatever they need to find to make you pay. I can go dig up shit. I could find somebody probably to go dig up crap on any program in this country. Sonia saw that. She is a cute girl, right? She's beautiful. And my dulcet tones when I'm ranting and raving apparently calm young children. And security. I don't know where that came from. Where did that come from? Are you playing Kenny Gifford on me tonight, Rick? John, when Michigan refused to separate themselves from Harbaugh and the Big Ten laid down Jim's 3-game suspension because the NCAA made them, the NCAA picked the hammer and made a plan for giving Michigan the casino treatment. I don't know who else gets the reference. I do, though, John. We'll see. We'll see. I still say no. And again, one of us will be right. You're welcome, Sonia. Sounds like you didn't look into the FBL that originated football. I did not look. I did look at it quickly. I did not see anything. I did see that there was that an investigation had been opened. I don't know. I didn't read too much deeper into that. John. So again, they're the FBI. Is that an I or no? That's an I. I did see I'm not. By the way, not major news. By the way, when you go look for this. Let's see. Hold on. Let me do this again. I think I did it. During the last show when you were going on about it. Let me try this again. Michigan FBI investigation. Football. So FBI joins inquiry into ex-Michigan assistant football coach. Into inquiry against ex-Michigan football coach. So the investigation, I know, is about the assistant, not from the program. This is what I read. The FBI has joined the University of Michigan's police department investigation of former Wolverines assistant coach Matt Weiss. So the school's investigating him and the FBI. They're not investigating the school, they're investigating Matt Weiss. That's when I stopped paying any attention to this. Because again, this to me, this more or less backs up my version of this story. It's a rogue assistant. So anyway, that's where I left off there. Oh, hell, Michigan, FBI. It is a true story, but they joined the University of Michigan in their investigation. I remember now. Now that we didn't have a show last week, so I forgot all about it. Which tells you much for how much I think that's a big deal. Rick says he's saying my new career path and whoever else you piss off. Oh my God. You guys are killing me tonight. What time is it? 8 o'clock? Let me jump into some. Oh, I can't. John's not going to let me go. I read an article that said if the FBI hadn't found anything by now, they would have closed the investigation and moved on. Well, again, they're part of it, an ongoing investigation by the university itself. So the FBI likely found something and is currently looking for a smoking gun. Smoking gun is Matt Weiss. Anyway, whatever. By the way, this was on ESPN, by the way. This is a story from October 26th. So no news, by the way. There's been no news items about the FBI in Michigan since October. Not one. And we all know how well the federal government keeps things close to the vest. So I can see why nothing's happened, right? No news has leaked out because the federal government's very good at not doing that. Oh, God. Well, guys, I'm going to jump for the last half hour. We can go back and talk college football if you want. Let's jump and talk some college basketball. Oh, God, I'm so stuffed up. Let's look at this week's college basketball. And we're going to go look at some of the conferences tonight. We'll look at some of the things that have happened in the first half of the season. Sonia, you finish watching later. Good luck in court tomorrow. Well, again, it's your job, not in court, obviously. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for participating, Sonia. Always good to have you. We hope to be on your show again soon. College basketball until John gets me back off of that. But the FBI is still there. That's fine. Again, in a joint investigation with the university. Well, they're not investigating. The only stories I see point to the FBI investigating Weiss. Not even your boy. Not even your boy. Who was he? What was the guy's name? Now it's escaping me, John. Well, whatever. Get Mucinex. I did take some Mucinex before the show, and we'll get there. Thank you, Sonia. I'm not sick like I was the last time. Hopefully I don't get there. I'll do my best to join you next week for sure, Sonia. Remind me. Thursday's probably a good night to do it because I'm doing the show till 8:30 anyway. I'll be on with Robert Butler from Sports Scopes at 8:30 as well tonight. So, Sonia, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. Let me switch the banner here, and we'll talk some college basketball. UConn, defending national champions, UConn. 44 first-place votes. Hang on to the number one spot. Purdue's number two with 17 first-place votes. A lot of movement here. Up one spot each. Carolina to 3, Houston to 4, Tennessee to 5. Tennessee to 5. Tennessee's playing great defense. Watch out. They're a sleeper here for Final Four. I know they have a history of going out early in the tournament. I just got a feeling this year. Kentucky resurgent under John Calipari this year. Offensive basketball has returned to Kentucky. Kansas drops 4 spots after losing this week to Oklahoma, I think, right? No, who'd they lose to? Take that back. It wasn't Oklahoma. They lost to terrible. Sometimes West Virginia they lost to earlier in the week. Yes. Auburn on the move, up 5 spots. Auburn unranked a couple of weeks ago, playing great basketball under another very polarizing guy in Bruce Pearl. Heck of a football or a basketball coach, though. Illinois, a lot of stuff going on there. Drama off the court. Also, Bruce Underwood doing a really good job there. They're 14-4, and they move up to number 10, up 4 spots. Oklahoma, Allen, congratulations. I said, what's the coach's name? Skip Prosser, not Skip Prosser. He used to be at I love the guy, Loyola Chicago. Now I can't remember his name. Duke drops 5 spots after having moved up into the top 10 last week. They fall back 5 spots. Still 13-4 in John Shire's second year. Hubert Davis, by the way, at number 3, North Carolina, doing an exceptional job. Nobody saw this coming after last year's debacle. Wisconsin drops a couple of spots. Marquette, who I like a lot. Shaka Smart's done a great job there. I love the way this team's put together. They could be a little bigger, but they're 13-5. They move up 3 spots to 14. Baylor falls 6 spots with a couple of losses. They're now 14-4. Dayton, out of the A-10, 15-2. They're up 5 spots to 16. Creighton up to 17 out of the Big East. Utah State drops a couple of spots out there in the Mountain West. Again, the Mountain West is very strong. When I go through the conferences, I'm not going to have time to probably go through them all. We're going to go through the ones that I care about the most. So I'll get your comments here in a second as soon as I complete this top 25. Memphis and Penny Hardaway dropped 9 spots, fell hard this week, down to 19. Texas Tech up 5 spots to 20. BYU drops a spot. Florida Atlantic trying to fight back for a couple of bad losses after beating Arizona. Iowa State is up to 23. Colorado State out of the Mountain West, and New Mexico out of the Mountain West round out the top 25. Falling out this week, TCU and Ole Miss, and just missing Seton Hall with scratchy Shasheen Holloway as their head coach, just missing out with 84 votes. So some interesting stuff going on in the polling. Does it really matter, when you're talking about postseason play and whatnot? What do we got? Sonia says, next Thursday you'll be traveling on your birthday. Happy birthday. So I will only need someone Tuesday or Wednesday. We can do something. We'll remind me over the weekend, Sonia, and I'll put it on my calendar. Let's just say, I'm trying to think what I got going on next week. It's the end of the month for work. So let's say either day, Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't care. You can tell me. John says, for the record, I'm not a lawyer. Currently employed by an insurance company doing statistical and analytical work. That's close enough to a lawyer. It's actually quite boring. So you get to come here and liven up the show. My wife's a lawyer. I'm really not bashing lawyers. She's a retired lawyer. So I guess that's, she's not. I better shut up right now. I didn't think you were a lawyer, John, but you never know these days. All right. Thank you, Sonia. By the way, I'm here just listening to you. Yeah, see, I'm calming you down too. Just young children and Sonia. I calmed down apparently with my rants. One last thing, and I'll leave it at this. What if the FBI finds that smoking gun and gas rolls on Harbaugh? Well, Gaddis is long gone, right? I mean, he's not even on the staff. Unless I'm misunderstanding who we're talking about here. But again, there could be something I don't know, John. I'm not saying anything's out of the realm of possibility. I just based on what I know today. My boss says this to me a lot, right? Based on what I know today, I don't think we're talking about anything that severe. If something comes out and there's a smoking gun and somebody rolls on Harbaugh, well, then so be it. He's out of play, so what are they going to do? Which is to your point, he's a coward. He got out in front of the posse. John does deal with lawyers all. I can't bash lawyers. I'm married to a lawyer. I just said that. Retired lawyer, but she still has her license, I think, until this year. John. I think you got to get John on the show, Sonia. I'm going to get John. I swear to God, next football season. And John, I know you can follow college basketball, but not quite as close, I think, as football. Because the SEC hasn't really been, world beaters in basketball for a while. But I swear to God, I'm going to get you on the show and we're going to have a live debate. Gaddis is leaving in no way diminishes his crime on how the FBI will treat ghettos. I think that's, I hope that's a misprint. But Gaddis left, what is his name? I think he got an extra T in there. I'm not sure. Or an H that doesn't belong. Or I'm thinking of a different guy. I don't think I'm going to get it. I think it's spelled differently, John. Yeah, Josh Gaddis, I think you're talking about, right? ATTS. He's been gone since 2021. In fact, I think he went to Miami, if I'm not mistaken. Are we talking about the same guy? So maybe you're saying he got out before, coppers got there as well? Let's get John. Here you go, John. You're on the spot now. Sonia's after you. Why do I think Duke is slipping? I don't think they're slipping. I mean, I think, look at very similar to Kalen DeBoer. And Kalen DeBoer is an accomplished coach already. John Shire taking over for Coach K was like an impossible job. And again, they didn't have a horrible team last year. They were top 25. They didn't have a great tournament. This year, we take a look at them. They're 5-2 in the conference, 14-4 overall. Their losses, Arizona, that's not a bad loss. Arkansas, really not a bad loss on the road. At Georgia Tech, that's a bad loss. And then most recently, the one that dropped them this week, they lost at home to Pitt. And is Pitt any better? I mean, listen, Capel was one of the guys right on the firing line last year. He did a great job at Pitt last year. This year, what have they done this year? Pittsburgh's fallen backwards a little bit. They're 12-7 overall, 3-5 in the ACC. Last year they had a resurgent year, and Jeff Capel kept his job. He was probably on the hottest seat in the country last year. But I think I don't think you could expect any more out of Duke the last two seasons thus far than you got. I don't think you could have expected more after replacing a legend like Coach K. I think we all miss Coach K. If you like, listen, it's funny. Duke and Coach K are one of those things that are great about sports. You either love them or you hate them. I like to watch good team. I'm a Marquette fan because I was an Al McGuire fan when I was a kid. They won a national championship in 1977 when I was 17 years old. And I've been a Marquette fan since, and they've only had a few good teams in those years since Coach McGuire retired. So I follow Marquette, but in college sports, unlike pro sports, I'm looking for good stories and really like to follow good stories. And that's why I followed Duke. Duke's been a great story through the years. I think dominant programs are good for sports. For whatever reason, whether it's pros or college, we're looking for parity everywhere we go. There's nothing wrong with teams that dominate. It just is. Tar Heels did bounce back. First year of their new head coach. That's why I asked. Well, Hubert Davis's first year 2 years ago was not all roses, remember, Sonia. They didn't have a great regular season. They just snuck into the tournament and went on a great run to the Final Four. And then last year, they struggled mightily. And Hubert Davis was, he was in the sights of some of the Carolina alum who didn't think maybe he was up to the job. Now he's brought that team back to be number 3 in the country. And listen, Duke is still, as I said, what are they, 14-4, 5-2 in a conference? I think they're positioned very well. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. I mean, it takes a couple of years for these guys who are first-time head coaches to get their feet under them. I think they've done a very, very good job. You were 2 in 1977. Well, thank you for rubbing it in, Sonia. That was a great year, by the way. The Yankees won the World Series. Marquette won the NCAA championship. We won't talk about what the Patriots did. LSU is looking sketchy again this year, so it's probably another year of fair weather fansmanship for you. So, John, that's what I thought. I knew you were I know you were a Tigers fan. Let's see. So let's see. How is we'll jump down to the SEC real quickly and see how things are panning out. LSU, it's always struck me, LSU, again, I'm going back to when I was a kid, when Dale Brown was there, and even later years, under some of the Will Wade teams, and I'm trying to think of some of the other coaches off the top of my head. I can't. You probably can, John. It always seems that they're never as good as the sum of their parts. They always have some good players. Dale Brown had some really good teams there. Got to the Final Four, I want to say twice, but just couldn't get over the hump. But I thought he had a lot of talented teams that should have done better than what they did. And I don't know where they are now in that. Right now they're 3-2 in the conference, 11-7 overall. Probably in bracketology, we're not looking at an NCAA tournament for this team. But, teams get hot. And in February is when you start to really dial in on those NCAA bids through conference play, which is now on full gear. And I think personally, the Southeast Conference is kind of wide open this year. Auburn didn't get off to a great start. It's been on a great run. Bruce Pearl's a really good coach. Again, you can fault him for some of the missteps he's made in his career. But there's a lot of college basketball coaches we can talk about that about. Tennessee's played really good. I mean, I said this last year that it might be Rick Barnes' year in his best team. I hate to jinx him again, but this might be his best team. Last year he went out early, if you remember. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They got one of the best defenses in the country, Tennessee. Alabama had a tough non-conference schedule, and they're 12-6 overall right now, not ranked, 4-1 in conference. South Carolina, bit of a surprise at 16-3, 4-2 in the conference. Kentucky, we talked about being number 6 in the country, but only 4-2 in the conference. Georgia, a big surprise at the top half of that conference, and then LSU. The big disappointments here so far are Buzz Peterson's Texas A&M Aggies, and maybe Arkansas. Eric Musselman has done a great job there up until this year. They're just 10-8 1-4 overall. The Razorbacks are coming off some great, really good, strong seasons in the SEC. So I see the SEC as wide open this year. Dominate like the team from Foxborough. Yes, I think there's nothing wrong with teams dominating for 20 years. Apparently the NFL does. Thank you, Mark, for popping in. Everybody wants parity. And watch the football games you're getting now, and you'll see what it looks like. It's not great. John, what's your thoughts on Daniels? He loves Jaden Daniels, I can tell you right now. We'll wait for his comment. LSU has had some awful coaches since Dale Brown, and McMahon doesn't look like a prize. Again, regardless of the coaching, and even during Dale Brown's time, they've had some good players there and never seem to be, as I said, using the old cliche, the sum never seem to equal the parts. Again, they haven't had powerhouses every year, but I would have thought they would have done better. Dale Brown was a great basketball coach. And as I remember, UCLA was on his case looking to bring him to the West Coast for more than a few times after the John Wooden era. But again, John, to Sonia's point, give her your take on Jaden Daniels. And I guess, how do you think he's going to fare at the next level? I think, and again, I may have given John a hard time about Daniels a little bit this year. Again, some of his numbers are inflated. He's a great athlete. I thought some of his numbers were inflated and blowout wins and such. But I think he's going to really translate really well on the next level because he's a big kid. He's not small. And the way the game's played in the NFL today, I think Jaden Daniels, I'm probably saying this, I think it's Jaden Daniels, right? Myself and names are not always on the same wavelength. But I think he's going to translate really well on the next level. Problem is, he's going to put a bad football team. So, John, you can give your opinion about Jaden Daniels. While I look at some of these other conferences and what's going on, I'm probably not going to get to I want to go through some of these conferences in the last 9 minutes we got because I got to get off right on time because I've got to jump on with Robert Butler on Sports Scopes. Go check that out at the bottom of the hour. I don't know what we're talking about. Probably Gerard Mayo, probably Nick Saban, maybe a few other things. Right now, the Atlantic Sun, not going to get too excited about some of these smaller conferences. They're going to be with one bids. Eastern Kentucky looks really good right now, obviously there. The team to watch out for is going to be Carlos's Austin P. Governors. Watch what I say here. American East, we've got a little bit of a rooting interest here as you Albany Great Danes playing this conference, playing a little better under Coach Killings, the guy who still has assault charges hanging over his head, I believe, from the Albany Police Department for one of his players, but that's a different story. Anyway, they're 2-2 in conference, 10-9 overall. UMass leads here. Vermont is the perennial favorite in this conference, and I'll stick with Vermont here as we talk about early conference play. The American Athletic Conference, again, another underrated league. I mean, Charlotte's good. Florida Atlantic has proven, I think, this year that last year's run was no fluke. They had a bit of a letdown. They've won 4 in a row again now, but they had a bit of a letdown after beating Arizona a few weeks back and moving up to, I think, the top. I feel like they got to 6 or 7 in the polls. But this is a very, very even conference. Charlotte is good. Florida Atlantic is good. SMU is good. Charlotte, by the way, is a team Marquette beat in the Final Four on the way to their national championship in '77. I'll keep throwing those old-time references in there. South Florida is playing a little bit above their head, maybe. North Texas. Memphis under Penny Hardaway, always good. All these teams are 4-2 or better. UAB also another perennial good team. Wichita State, which has been a pretty good team up until the last couple of years, and we found out there was some bad stuff going on there under their former coach Marshall, and it's a shame to see that the bottom has fallen out of that program after a pretty good run for a while, including one to an Elite Eight, undefeated until they lost in the Elite Eight a few years back. The Atlantic 10 with a strong performance so far, with Dayton 6-0 and 16-2 overall in the top 16. Richmond's 5-0 in a conference, 13-5. Loyola 5-2, 13-7. VCU always a contender in his conference. George Washington's had a decent year. And then we got some teams that are kind of, St. Bonaventure, who's been good the last few years, is kind of struggling right now. Davidson, who's been pretty good the last few years, is struggling right now. St. Louis has not really been a strong contender since Rick Majerus left there. The Atlantic Coast Conference, we've already talked about a little bit. Florida State at the top. The North Carolina at the top. Florida State is second right now. A little bit disappointing, but 6-2 in conference. Disappointing with their overall record. Duke is third in the conference, and my Miami team, by the way, not faring very well after being ranked in top 15 early. They're in the middle of the pack and not trending towards the tournament right now. Big 12, which we've talked about, this might be the best basketball conference in the country. Only going to get better next year as well, by the way, because I don't think losing Oklahoma and Texas is going to hurt them that bad. Texas Tech leading the way here. Kansas is 4-1 as well. Houston, Coach Sampson is a great coach, fourth in the country, not missing a beat after joining the Big 12. I love this team. This is a team to watch out for, winning it all for sure. We'll be talking more about that in the coming weeks. I just want to get through this real quick. Biggest disappointment here is probably BYU. Even though they're ranked 21st, only 2-4 in the conference. Oklahoma had gotten off to a good start and has fallen back a little bit in the last week or two, but they're still 3-3 and 15-4 overall. We're going to see if they can withhold this. This is a gauntlet they got to run in this conference. It's going to be interesting to see how they can hold up. The Big East, the resurgent Big East, UConn, of course, leading the way, 7-1, 17-2 overall. Seton Hall, a surprising 6-2. Shasheen Holloway doing a great job there. Creighton, perennial contender in this conference. Marquette will be fine. They're 4-3 in a conference, just going through a little bit of midseason lull, I think. St. John's fallen into a bit of a midseason lull themselves. They've lost their last 2-3 without Coach Rick Pitino. But 12-7 overall. Watch out for this team getting better and better as we get closer to tournament time, and watch out for them. Big Sky, one bid conference, probably the favorite here was probably Montana in my mind. Eastern Washington is leading it right now. In the Big South, another one bid league. High Point Panthers, not a team in general here, leading any league, doing pretty well. Watch out for Winthrop and UNC Asheville, who are really the perennial contenders there. The Big Ten, probably up there with the Big 12 in my mind, is the best two conferences right now. Wisconsin leading the way. Purdue right behind them, number 2 in the country. Wisconsin's number 13. Illinois at 5-2. And then you got a lot of teams bunched up between 5-2 and 3-4. Some really good basketball teams that we would expect more out of. You would expect more out of Michigan, last in the conference. You would expect more out of Rutgers after the last few years, second to last in the conference. Indiana struggling along, 12-7, 4-4 in the league. Michigan State trying to fight back after a really disastrous start to the season under Coach Izzo. Iowa under Fran McCaffrey, who became the winningest coach in Iowa history this past week, 11-7, 3-4 in the conference. So wide open what can happen here. The Big West, another one bid league. One of the UC teams will win it because they're all UC. UC teams. Coastal Athletic Conference, some good teams here come out. It'll be a one bid league. Drexel's always got a pretty good competitive team. Hofstra's had a good team for a few times. Charleston, but I would watch Drexel. They're leading the league here, and I think they'll probably get the bid here. At least they're the favorites to get the bid. Conference USA, one big league. There's nobody I'm getting excited about in this league, to be honest with you. Sam Houston is leading it right now. There's only one independent left in college basketball, by the way, and that's Chicago State. The Horizon League, another one bid league. I like Oakland to probably hold on and get this bid. Watch out for a team like Cleveland State to maybe make a run during the tournament. Princeton leading the Ivy League. Cornell. These these are the two teams that have dominated this conference, along with Harvard a few times with Tommy Amaker through the last decade or so. The Metro Atlantic, Siena, not doing very well. They're another local team here, 2-5 in conference, 3-15 overall, doing very poorly. Quinnipiac, St. Peter's leading the way in the Metro. Mid-American Conference, Akron at 7-0, Toledo 6-1, Bowling Green, the teams you would expect to be up there. Miami of Ohio is a bit of a disappointment this year. They're usually better in basketball than they are showing here. Buffalo, another team that's done well in the past, especially when Bobby Hurley was there, fading a little bit. We're going to be getting ready to sign off here in just a minute. And Sonia's saying, great show. Thank you. Sonia, we'll get together with you next week on your show, I promise you. Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, Delaware. It's got another one-bid league again. Delaware is probably going to come out of here with the bid. The Missouri Valley Conference, which is much better than people think. Drake having another really good year at 16-3, 7-1, still unranked. Indiana State, who we don't hear a lot of since Larry Bird left, 16-3, 7-1 overall. And Bradley, watch out for Bradley. The big disappointment here, most likely, I would say, is probably Belmont, who has a competitive team most years. This year, they're not playing that good, 11-9 overall. Mountain West, again, just like in football, this is an underrated league. 3 teams ranked. They've had as many as 5 teams ranked at one time this year. Utah State, Boise State, San Diego State, New Mexico, Colorado State, all have been ranked. At one point, they were all ranked at the same time. So again, another conference to keep an eye on. I'm going to skip over some of these. Pac-10, very disappointing. Other than Arizona, this team, and Oregon maybe a little bit, a lot of disappointments here. UCLA is down this year badly, 3-5 in conference, 8-11 overall. Mitch Cronin's probably going to be feeling the heat there. USC way down, even with Ronnie James back now. Southeast Conference, where we talked about. And that's going to do it. We're going to skip the rest of these. I will say Gonzaga is 4th in the West Coast Conference this year, so that's a little bit of a surprise there as well. And we got to wrap it up, guys. So have a great day. Have a great night. We'll talk more college basketball. We'll get more college basketball in as we go through here the coming weeks, because football will fade into the sunset a little bit. Have a great night, guys. I got to get out of here. Keith Engle, TGI Sports Talk. Talk to you later. Bye.